Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first episode of Sitting Courtside. My name is Dante Toro, and I am joined by my co-host, Jerry, and it is about time that we got this podcast going, Jerry. We have been planning this for a very, very long time. Sitting Courtside, we are a basketball-driven podcast. Maybe we'll sprinkle in some other sports here and there, but we're mainly basketball focused. We are here to give you our hot takes, our opinions, our thoughts. We're basically here to, be the voices of the NBA and sports and stuff and interact with the fans because this podcast is for the fans as well. We want to interact with you guys. We want to chat, have fun. That's the point of the podcast. And before we get into it, me and Jerry, we kind of want to make this podcast, very personality driven. We want you to get to know us. We want you to, care about the people who are giving you these opinions, who are talking ball, talking shop. So I want to give a little background information about myself. My name is Dante Toro. I'm 25 years old from the Boston area. I am a huge Boston sports fan, as you will probably tell throughout the recordings of these episodes. I try to keep it as unbiased as possible. I try to keep it as unbiased as possible when it comes to talking about the Celtics and all that stuff, but I am a Boston sports fan. I want to get that out of the way. But yeah, I'm a basketball guy at heart. I've been following it my entire life. And it's about time that we got this basketball podcast going because I've been looking to talk some ball, to be able to get my opinions out there, and this is the place to do it. But enough about me, Jerry. The fans want to hear from you. Let's hear it.
Nah, that was one hell of an intro, man. I was taken back. I became a fan momentarily right there. But I'm Jerry Donasian. I don't think Dante said the last name because he probably didn't really know how to pronounce it, and that's totally fine.
Absolutely.
But I was born and raised in New Jersey, but I moved to Charlotte probably by the time I was around 10 or 11 or whatever it was. So I kind of claim both. I'm a Northerner at heart, though, either way. But I'm a Hornets beat reporter for ClutchPoints and stuff like that. So we have been trying to stir this in the pot for quite some time. It's been marinating. So now we're finally able to bust it out and throw it on the stovetop, man. And let's get cooking, The whole Boston sports fanatic stuff is cool, but we kind of clash a little bit because I'm a Lakers fan, but I know how to leave my bias out of situations, so I'll be the mediator between that to grade how we go throughout this process and how we learn. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Like, we're both pretty explosive. We've had off-camera debates about things or conversations about things, about football and basketball primarily. So to be able to get this project going and to be able to start this thing up, man, I'm excited. I'm going to try to keep it as PG as possible, but, sometimes tempers flare and F-bombs go, so it is what it is.
Listen, Jerry, as the co-host of this podcast, I'm giving you permission to drop as many F-bombs as you want, because I know, speaking for myself, there's going to be a few times where they're going to slip. At the end of the day, it's our podcast. It's our opinions. It's our, if we get animated, we get into it. That's just how it is. So
I think we need to look at it from the point of view that we're not on national TV yet.
Exactly.
So we can be that rated, our kind of content that we like to watch and we take in. So
that's right. That's right. And I think the mix of Boston, LA, those two different fan bases, I think we're going to mesh well, Jerry. I think this is going to be a match made in heaven, as they say.
I'm cool.
Well, I say, why wait? Why keep talking about us? Let's talk about the NBA. Let's talk about some of the biggest pieces of news that have come out recently. Obviously, right now, recording today, it's July 27th. So we're a few weeks, about a month into free agency. A lot of stuff has happened so far. So, we might not be able to get to every little thing. We want to get to the most relevant topics. And the most relevant topic right now, ironically enough, is about the Boston Celtics. Jaylen Brown signs a 5-year, $300 million $304 million contract, but $304 million contract, the richest contract in NBA history, given to the number 2 option on the Boston Celtics. Now,
the guy that was dangled in trade rumors every single year.
Since 2016, baby. Since he was drafted. I remember the day he was drafted, before the draft started, they did like a little rundown where they were like practicing with the graphics. And I remember Buddy Hield was leaked as the Celtics pick beforehand. And now I'm getting amped up. I'm like, oh, Buddy Hield. Oh, like, I love that guy. Turns out to be Jaylen Brown. And, I want to get your thoughts and opinions first on this before I get into my tangent about this, because I definitely have some thoughts about this. But I do want to point out, I think it is a very cool story of how Jaylen Brown, who a guy, coming out of Cal, he was a high prospect. He didn't really have much to him at that point. It was more so the potential of what he could become. And as each year has gone on, maybe besides that one Kyrie year where he was coming off the bench, whatever, he took strides. He got better every single year. And just from where he came from to where he is now, what he plans on doing with the money, what he's doing in the community of Boston is special. He is an incredible human being. I want to get that out of the way first. But let's talk about the money. Jerry, what are your thoughts on Jaylen Brown signing the richest deal in NBA history?
Well, first and foremost, I think it was a no-brainer if you're Boston management, if you're Brad Stevens and company. I think they looked at it from the point of view of, if we let this guy walk, what else are we going to possibly replace him with, or what can we possibly get in the trade market that might be better than Jaylen Brown? Now, like, the whole Damian Lillard thing was hot for a little bit until Dame basically said, I don't want to be in Boston. So that immediately removed any type of hypothesis or underground tunnel that we thought that Dame could have ended up in Boston with Tatum. That eliminated all those possibilities. Mm-hmm. So with that being off the table, with that being the potential only player better than Jaylen Brown that was available, I think this was the most logical move. Yeah, it's a shit ton of money to give to your second option, but we've seen Jason Tatum disappear in certain acts of games where Jaylen Brown had to be the best player, like in the finals in 2022. When they played the Warriors, we can make the argument that Jaylen Brown was the best player and not Tatum.
Absolutely.
So they complement each other perfectly. Plus I think having the ingredients of the remnants of the 90s Bulls, of having two dominant two-way wings like MJ and Pip, right? Mm-hmm. That's what the Clippers try to swing for with Kawhi and PG, who just can't stay healthy. Having Tatum and Brown, two 6'6" and 6'8" guys respectively, that are amazing players on offense, but are also great defenders when they actually engage and locked in. Those guys can make all defensive teams at some point in their careers. If they haven't already, I'm not sure. But ultimately, I think this was the best possible move for their franchise. You keep those two together, Tatum is going to get even more money whenever his contract comes along.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
That mantle's not going to be held for too long for Jaylen Brown, but I say, they're both 26 and under. Why not lock them in for another 5 years? And by the time they're 31 or 32, then we revisit that, do we need to break them up conversation. But until then, let them grow. They've been to the Eastern Conference Finals a crap ton, I think 4 or 5 times together. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They've been to one NBA Finals. Why not just let them continue to grow together rather than trying to split them up? The KD talks are interesting for a little bit last summer, or whatever other superstar was linked to them that they were going to flip Jaylen Brown for. Cool, whatever. It's gone. It's out the way. We don't have to hear about that until they have some type of hiccup again, but keep them together for as long as possible.
I agree with almost everything that you said there. And as I'm trying to speak. I'm speaking as a Celtics fan, but I'm trying to detach myself a little bit to see the bigger picture here. $304 million is a lot of money. Okay, that's a lot of money to give to anybody. So I think that's the first initial reaction that happened when Jaylen Brown signed the deal, or even leading up to it. Like, why would anyone pay a secondary player this much money? The most money in NBA history, right? But we look back in history, I think it was 7 years ago, Mike Conley signed the richest deal, in NBA history for $150 million. 7 years later, we doubled that. Next offseason, it's going to go higher and higher and higher. Right now, at this moment, like you said, Jaylen Brown is the richest player in NBA history going off of his deal. But That's not going to stay that way forever. Next offseason, you were talking about Jason Tatum. He's eligible for a 5-year, $340 million contract extension next offseason. I guarantee you the offseason after that, there's going to be a player that potentially signs for more. The way the NBA is moving, they have their TV deal, I believe, expires in 2 years. And the NBA is looking to basically double what they make now, which I have pulled up. They're currently making $2.6 billion a year from Disney and Warner Brothers, and they're looking to double that. When we saw the big spike in deals a few years ago, that's when they signed this TV deal. They got a ton of money. They give that to the teams, the salaries. We're going to be seeing that again in the future. So people that are upset about Jaylen Brown making $50-60 million a year have to understand the direction that the NBA is going down, that this is the new normal. As crazy as that sounds, it's going to become the new normal where players are going to be signing extensions for $300 million that are much better than Jaylen Brown. Now, going off of the money and just the situation itself, when people were talking about getting Jaylen Brown out of Boston, like he had his ups and downs in this previous playoff performances. I understand that. You have the jokes about how he can't dribble with his left hand, which I'm not refuting. I'm not arguing. It's definitely something that he's got to work on. But
it's a real thing.
It's a real thing. And when the Miami Heat come out, like when you have players come out saying like, oh, like when Tatum got hurt, we knew what we had to do, and that's make Jaylen go left. It's a problem. You got to work on that. But Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have made it to the Eastern Conference Finals at least 6 times together. The only year that Jaylen Brown has not made an Eastern Conference Finals appearance was the year that they got eliminated by the Bucks in the second round when Kyrie had his infamous shot 8 for 22 and goes, I'll never shoot like that again, and shoots 7 for 22 the next game. Besides that year, they have made it to the Eastern Conference Finals every single year. That's a very hard duo to split up. You want to save money. You want to look elsewhere, look at options of who else you can bring in place of Jaylen Brown. Maybe a 1-for-2 situation, bring in a few players to bolster your team, whatever. But who else is out there? That was my biggest question that I had, that you were also wondering. Who is out there that they could trade Jaylen Brown for that could keep them on the same level that they are? And besides Lillard, which was a rumor for a few days, it was a fun rumor. Kevin Durant was a name I feel like those two have been thrown around in trade rumors for the last year or two. Besides those two players, there really was no one else. There was no one that was available that the Celtics could go after that could, replace Jaylen Brown. So the Celtics, not to say they had their hands tied, but this was the decision that they had to make, and I think it was the right decision. You get 5 more years of Jaylen Brown. You can't look ahead to the future, but let's hopefully assume or be optimistic in saying that Jason Tatum's going to sign an extension next offseason. So now you have a larger window of having these two. And like you said, now you get to your early 30s. You kind of have to get to that point, give it a few years, and then you make your decision of what you want to do. But I think the right move here was re-sign Jaylen, keep him around, and if you want to revisit trade, he can't get traded his first year. So that's one thing I want to point out too. But after that, if they want to revisit trades, they can do it. But I think for what they are looking to do and what they're trying to accomplish, it's going to be hard to go after a championship when you split up the duo that has made it so far at this point in their careers. So that's what I think about it.
Yeah, and plus, hearing you just go on the same type of spiel, it's cool that we're in agreement for our first topic, but it is a no-brainer. But just sitting back and listening to you talk some more about it, I'm pretty sure every season they won over 50 games or so. They definitely have over a 500 record as a duo.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the rest of the duos that are in the league, like LeBron and AD, or Kawhi and PG, or Joel and James Harden last year, a lot of them were hurt. A lot of them missed a lot of time. Obviously, I'm more so pointing at the Clippers, but the Lakers were riddled with injuries last year as well, where LeBron missed a lot of time and AD missed a lot of, a crap ton of games. So for me to even look at those two guys, the number one skill that they have that all those other duos in the league don't is durability.
Yep.
And if you're healthy in this league, you're going to continue to be successful eventually. I believe in these next 5 years or so, that they gotta at least capture at least one championship, right? The
You
the
would hope.
window's gonna widen up at
Mhm.
some point for them to jump in and actually seize this opportunity.
So I don't want to jump ahead here, but I do want to kind of point this out too. Just kind of going off the Celtics and their success, but also their downfall towards the end of the year. So last year, the Celtics had one of the best rosters from the starting lineup to the 15th man, right? All year long, I said, if the Celtics do not win a championship this year, they're going to shake up the roster because they've gotten to a point where you've had the same core for a handful of years. You keep making it to the same point, and if you come up short, something's got to change. So when the Celtics lost the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals, when that did happen, when they fell short, that's when the whole trade Jaylen, shake up the team thing happened. You want to shake up the team, but you also don't want to mess up the structure that you have. There are fall guys and there are guys that you want to get rid of last case scenario. And getting rid of Jaylen and Jason is definitely last case scenario. Unfortunately, the fall guy in this situation was Marcus Smart, which people still aren't happy about. But listen, I love Marcus Smart to death. But if I had to pick, if you want to get rid of Jaylen and Marcus, I'm picking Marcus. And I know there are a lot of Celtics fans, which sounds crazy, that disagree with me on that. But it's like you have one of the best duos in sports in the NBA, if arguably the best. I'm not saying that they are, but you can make a fair argument. You don't get rid of that. You don't spoil it. Even if you've come up short this many times, you figure out ways to build around them. And that's exactly what the Celtics have done this offseason. And I hope they continue to do. I hope they got one more move left. But we'll see what they do. But when it comes down to it, Jaylen Brown, I don't think he was ever on the hot seat. I don't think there was ever a question of whether he would come back or not. The Celtics were going to make a big splash. They were going to get rid of guys like Marcus Smart, which obviously led to the roster they have now at Kristaps. And I kind of just wanted to pick your brain about that since we're on the topic of the Celtics, of how you think that move will impact them next year. Do you think obviously Marcus Smart is considered the heart and soul of the Celtics. He was a locker room leader. Is that something that you think is going to affect them detrimentally next year, or is it something that they'll be able to bounce back from and be better than they were last year?
I think we could see them take a leap, definitely forward, because I mean, I think you pretty much hit everything on the head with Marcus Smart and what he meant to the team, the heart and soul, playing that Draymond role, if you will, to actually lead these guys in the locker room, on the court, even put them in right positions, especially defensively. He's like their middle linebacker on that side of the floor. So it is a tough pill to swallow. And I understand why Boston fans feel how they feel. But Kristaps in Washington, this was probably his best season of his career, at least especially since New York.
Sure.
Watching him waste away in Dallas for those 2 seasons because Rick Carlisle only wanted to stick him into a corner and make him a spot-up shooter, which didn't obviously utilize his talents the right way, playing off a superstar like Luka. But we saw what he did in Washington with a part-time Bradley Beal when he wasn't dealing with injuries.
Yep.
And he was nearly a 2010 guy with almost 2 blocks a game. You add that into the pot with Boston. No disrespect to Robert Williams, because I think the two could coexist. But that is probably a more prototypical thing how we want to look at the center position moving forward. We're looking at 3-and-D centers now. That's what you have to do in this league. If you're going to be that tall, you need to be able to knock down the outside shot. Kristaps could do that at, I think it was a 35% clipper, so I don't have the numbers pulled up. But good outside shooter, could definitely space the floor, which stretches it even more for the likes of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They also did keep Malcolm Brogdon. I know they tried to trade him initially, but as of right now, he is still on the roster.
Yep.
And when he plays, he's still a good player. Derek White. You essentially have the same exact roster. You just take out Marcus Smart and plug in Kristaps, which, to me, offensively at least, this is a better big three than what it was with Marcus Smart. Maybe even on both sides of the ball, because he is a mobile shot blocker that, yeah, he's going to get beat off the dribble if he is switched on to guards or forwards, but that length and that athleticism to get back into the picture to either contest or block the shot is going to be huge. So the stable of bigs that you have out in Boston now is also beefed up. You still have Al Horford, Rob
Mhm.
Williams, like I mentioned, and you add KP to it. They definitely got better. Like now the trick is going to see what type of step Missoula takes as a head coach
Mhm.
to incorporate a new piece like this to see how everything meshes with your two stars. But I'm not even trying to disrespect Missoula, but
No, you
I think
can.
I
No,
can figure out.
you can. I've disrespected him a little bit this past playoffs. It's okay.
I don't. It's not. It's first grade math, SpongeBob. That's how I feel about it. That's exactly how I feel about
Yeah.
it, though.
Uh-huh.
Like you have your 3-and-D big, and you still have your two wings and a good holster of guards.
Yep.
It's not hard.
No, I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm hearing this coming from a non-Boston fan because let me tell you, ever since that trade happened, all I've been seeing from Boston fans is like it's there are people obviously that support the getting Chris Apps, but people are so upset that Marcus is gone, which I love. He was the first ever Celtics jersey I ever bought was a Marcus Smart jersey, his first year in the league. I love the guy. I was hyped when we drafted him, whatever. But again, you have the core. You've had a core for so long. You get so far, and you don't win anything. You gotta shake it up. Unfortunately, he was the fall man. Chris Apps last year. I just want to kind of go off of what you said. Chris Apps last year averaged 23 and 8, shooting 38% from three. So you add that to the Celtics system where Marcus Smart was average at best at shooting threes. I'm gonna say it that way. He had his games where he was hot and he'd hit a few, and then there were games where it was like, all right, this guy shouldn't be shooting the ball. I think adding in that big man as the third piece of the big three, because throughout their careers, the Celtics have experimented with big threes with guards. The Jays had Kyrie, Kemba Walker. They had Marcus Smart took the role as the starting point guard, and now it's like, okay, we see what they can do with like star guards. Obviously, it's they can't do, not that they can't do much, but you can't win with them. Let's try a different route. Let's get a big man in here as the third option and see how that goes. And I think it's going to go well. We'll see how the rest of the offseason plays out, how training camp comes around, how everyone looks. That will be seen. But let's move on from the Celtics here because even as a Celtics fan, I will say we spent a little bit of time talking with the Celtics. So let's divert a little bit. We brought him up already. Damian Lillard is still a Portland Trailblazer this very moment. Requested a trade about a month ago, maybe less than a month ago, after years of people wondering if he ever was going to request a trade. It finally happened. Miami Heat is his top option, still is the top option. Although there are some rumors going around that the Blazers, they want to get the best package. They might not trade him to Miami if they don't get what they want in return. They might wait. They might hold out. Maybe by February, the trade deadline, something happens. If hopefully they can hold on to him. But Jerry, what do you make of this situation? Where do you think Damian Lillard's playing next season? And just what are your overall thoughts on his trade request and just what's going on here?
Uh, to answer that first question, I think he starts out the season a Blazer.
Oh,
I
okay.
I don't think something's gonna get done beforehand. Like this isn't a Bradley Beal situation where he has the power to control his own fate
Mm-hmm.
because Bradley Beal had a no trade clause.
Crazy how Bradley Beal had the power, but go on.
Having a no trade clause just allows you to pretty much have a team buy the balls.
Uh-huh.
Where like it's just like the Kevin Garnett situation
Yeah.
back in Minnesota.
Shout out to
Like
Minnesota.
it kind of worked for your Boston Celtics because hey, guess what? Kevin McHale made the trade to Danny Ainge. So,
Ironic. Funny how that
yeah.
works.
But there's no tampering involved or anything like that.
No,
So
that never.
whatever.
No one's ever tampered in the NBA before. No, never.
But it was the same. It was the same situation because we knew KG wasn't going to get it done in Minnesota. They had fun teams in Minnesota with Sam Cassell, Latrell Sprewell, Trenton Hassel, even
Yeah.
a bunch of names that just send me way back into early 2000s, which I love. But they were never. They weren't better than the Spurs. They weren't better than the Lakers. They weren't better than the Suns or even the Mavs at that point in time in the early to mid 2000s. So yeah, Kevin Garnett wanted to stay, but it just kind of figured it out. Like, hey, we're not built to win, and they wanted to rebuild.
Yeah.
And literally a couple years later, they end up drafting Kevin Love, and that's their new building block. But it's kind of like the same situation, except Dame doesn't have a no trade clause. So yeah, he wants to go to Miami. That's nice, but they don't want Tyler Hero. Portland has enough guard depth with Shaedon Sharpe. With obviously they just drafted Scoot. They have Anthony Simons.
Yeah,
they have
they're
like
loaded up
guys in the backcourt that they're like Tyler Hero would just kind of just be wasting away on the bench, or I don't like Tyler Hero at my small forward. So what are we even going to do with him? Unless a third team gets involved here, that's the only way that this works.
right?
That somebody can take on Tyler Hero. I know Toronto and even Brooklyn are interested in Tyler's services, so maybe that's who Portland and Miami need to get with to make this thing happen. But overall, I am glad that he finally decided to demand a trade. The West is stacked to the fact that Portland wasn't even a top 8 team.
Crazy.
Even with Dame being healthy, like healthy-ish in the season. Because we know the Lakers, the Nuggets, the Clippers, the Suns, we could keep on rolling. Like, maybe I'd take Portland at the 9 spot to be in a play-in situation, but I'm glad that he finally figured it out. He came out too late.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely other trades that could have happened about 2 to 3 years ago before he signed the extension that put him in this situation. But this is my closing point. I know I've been talking for a while.
No,
but
please.
The player empowerment era that we're in right now is meant for you to go to situations that you actually want to be in and partake in a system or an organization that you have the best opportunity to win.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could just stay in it for the money. We've seen guys like Carmelo Anthony, for example, when he could have went to Chicago with Derrick Rose, Luol Deng, Carlos Boozer, and that was Derrick Rose before the knees gave out.
Right.
That could have been a team that contended with the Miami Heat, with Bron, Wade, and Bosh. But he could make more money in New York. So he decided to stay. James Harden, same thing. Whenever the Rockets started to taper off a little bit, he signed an extension to keep him there.
Yeah.
Because it's money talks.
Then he put on a fat suit. Then he put on a fat suit in training camp and got shipped off.
And you force your way out however you see fit.
However you got to do it. Whether you got to put on a fat suit or just not show up, whatever you decide. You make great points there. I mean, I want to say I have the utmost respect for Damian Lillard. He's always been one of my favorite players to watch, to follow. I think he's a stand-up person. High impact on and off the court for his community. And I think you have an admiration and respect for a guy that genuinely does want to stay where he was drafted, grind it out, and reward that team, that organization with a championship, right? But sometimes you get to a point where it's like, you've done all that you can do, and now it's just like you point fingers at the organization. I mean, Portland Trailblazers have put together some decent teams over the years. They made it to the Western Conference Finals a few years ago, maybe multiple times even. I'm not sure how many times, but they've had teams that had potential. But at the end of the day, there are teams like the Golden State Warriors. I don't think I even have to list any more teams out in the West, because that was the one team that it was going to be impossible to get by. And I think it just got to the point where Portland just, not that they stopped trying, but they just couldn't do anything. They couldn't find the right pieces to put around Damian Lillard. So they decided to take matters to their own hands and take the next step, which was, instead of trading the number 3 pick, the number 3 pick, they kept it and they drafted another guard, which is meant to be Damian Lillard's replacement. So it's kind of like Damian Lillard got put into a situation where his hands were tied. I don't think he wanted to request a trade. I think he still wants to be a Portland Trailblazer, but it got to the point where they're not going to support him. Why is he going to stick around? Which I don't blame him for. And, he's gotten a lot of slack with the trade request. People saying like, oh, you're saying this 1 year, you're not going to duck the grind, this and that. Now you're requesting trades. Get out of here. It's like, you put yourself in his shoes, like you totally would understand where he's coming from, why he's making the decision. And again, he ducking the grind. He's been doing this for 10, 11 years. Like, you can only do so much. The guy averaged 32 points a game last year and they were the 13th seed in the West. What the Like, what the fuck else is he supposed to do? There's the first F-bomb right there. But, like, you know what I mean? It's like, and you listen, like, there's all these other teams in the West that have gotten better. And just the NBA in general, there's so much talent with the, like, they had to introduce a play-in tournament because there's more than 8 teams in each conference that have the likelihood of making the playoffs and are good enough to make it. So, that being said, I don't blame Damian Lillard for wanting out. I don't blame him for wanting to get out of the West even. But I do still understand where Portland comes from. You have a generational player that you want to get the most for. And if the best offer you're getting is Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, and some picks, yeah, I'm kind of turned off by that too. And then maybe you bring in a third team to try to add to what you get back in return, and that could work. But go ahead.
I'll just go ahead. So do you think he starts out the season in Portland next year?
So I think the Blazers are definitely going to hold out as long as they can, because at the end of the day, they have the leverage. There's no rush to this. I mean, if Lillard sits out, he sits out. I mean, that's just how it is. But the Blazers don't have to rush and make a move. They can take their time up until training camp, up until the first day of the season if they wanted to get the best offer. Now, I don't think he's going to start the season as a Trailblazer. I do think something will get done eventually, because I do think the Blazers want to accommodate him. He gave their organization his all. I do think that they want to have a good relationship with him, and just to show to future free agents and stuff that, hey, like, we don't screw guys over, whatever. That it's a business at the end of the day as well. I don't think he'll start the season as a Blazer. What I do think will happen is like a 3-team trade happens, and Portland is just going to load up on draft picks, maybe get a few young guys, but it's a very tough situation to be a part of, but it's what they have to do. It's what they have to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, Portland holds all the power here, or like we both agreed on at the top of this segment. It's the ball is in their court; it's not in Dame's.
Right.
So unfortunately, he has to wait out this long, grueling process. I hope I'm wrong that he is somewhere else come at the start of the season, because I would like for him to have, the training camp to get in with. Let's say he does end up Miami with Jimmy and Bam, and just kind of figure things out. That way, you build chemistry in the summertime. Like, I wouldn't doubt that they're working out together right now as we speak. Yeah. It's just not being put out on social media.
Right.
Like, I would love for him to end up where he wants to go play. Dame is the gold standard. I've had the pleasure to meet Dame a couple times, being in the locker room with him. So, like, it's definitely real chill guy. I hope he gets what he wants. But ultimately, when you don't leave, earlier before you sign a big extension, it's kind of your fault too.
Right.
Like, yeah. Portland is a smaller franchise compared to an LA or any of the other big markets, but you should have probably anticipated that.
Right. He did sign that big extension a few years ago too. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like people were talking about, I hate to bring it back up, but the whole Damian Lillard, Jaylen Brown thing going on. Damian Lillard makes like almost double of what Jaylen Brown makes. So that trade just was never plausible. It just was never going to be a 1-for-1 thing. It was always going to be a Damian Lillard for Jalen and Marcus or something like that. So you have to keep in mind too, like, it's hard to do trades when you have big contracts like this and you try to match contracts. So, and one other question I want to ask you, if you could pick any other team in the NBA that you think would trade for Lillard that isn't Miami, who do you think that team should be?
I think it'd be the Nets.
The Nets?
Because, that's the other squad that he showed interest in, and he has a good relationship with Mikal Bridges. Like, they have the draft capital after the Harden trade and Kyrie and the KD trade. It's a big market. Kind of, it's not the Knicks, but it's still in New York. So big, super big, like super media market kind of thing. So it makes sense in my head for him to go to Brooklyn, I think.
No, I think that would be a very realistic spot as well. If Miami, nothing works out there, because like you said, they have a ton of picks from James Harden. They have a few young talent. They have a few guys that they could ship off as well. I think that's a very realistic destination I think, and now this is kind of like going against what I said a few minutes ago about how he should want to go to the East. I think the New Orleans Pelicans might be able to cook something up. I do think that it would come at the expense of like a Zion, but if New Orleans wants to get into a win now situation, they have a ton of depth. They have a ton of good, young, but also like been the league a few years players. A lot of good shooters that I think that would complement Damian Lillard well. Also, CJ McCollum is there, so you kind of reunite that duo as well. But I think that the Pelicans would be able to have enough draft capital and players to put together an enticing package for Damian Lillard. Maybe I may have gone a little overboard with Zion, but I do think if you put Zion in the mix there, that's a deal that could get done like that.
I'm not mad at that, but if I'm Portland, like yes, I'm looking at two guys on their roster. I'm looking at Zion. I'm looking at Brandon Ingram. Yes. But if I'm New Orleans, I'm not giving up Zion for Damian Lillard. Like,
okay,
the boom or bust potential there is obviously high risk, high reward. But if this kid pans out, they were number one in the West in January.
They were.
A healthy Zion.
They were. 100%.
Like that could have been a team contending for a title if he stays healthy and stays away from the porn stars. Like we're talking about a different team. Like we're talking about a team that could have really
Zion, you gotta watch out, bro. You gotta stay away from those porn stars. They're out for you.
They just want your money, dog.
They do. That's all they want.
I'm done. I'm done with that.
No, but like they got CJ McCollum, Trey Murphy, Valanciunas, Herbert Jones, Jose Alvarado, Larry Nance. They don't have Jack. They have a solid team. They have a solid roster.
They're an interesting team. But if I'm Portland, you have to give me Brandon Ingram because I'm under the belief that they're not going to give up Zion.
So that's what I was going to ask. You think that they should give up Brandon Ingram instead? Yeah.
You give me Brandon Ingram, Dyson Daniels, because that's a good project player, and probably even Kyra Lewis to add to my guard rotation. Like I would take those guys.
Yeah.
But you have to give me BI though. It's not working any other way.
No, I get that. Portland definitely would want the safer player. Obviously, the potential of Zion's unbelievable, and he, generational talent is the upside there. But you know what you're getting out of Ingram. You know you're getting a 25-plus point per game scorer that doesn't have an injury history like Zion. So you could work with that. So we'll see. But at the end of the day, I think he will end up in Miami. I just think it's inevitable. It's inevitable.
It has to be a 3-2 trade. I agree.
Yeah, because Tyler Hero, no disrespect to him, I don't think that he's a big enough name. I mean, I don't think this is a hot take or anything. He's not a big enough name or whatever to be like included a trade package for Damian Lillard and be like, oh yeah, they got Tyler Hero back from that and some picks. Oh, that's a great return for them. Like, no, you gotta get something else involved to make it a little bit more enticing. But let's move on. Let's talk about, probably the next biggest thing in the NBA. The most hype is around Victor Wembanyama, the number one overall pick in the NBA draft. This guy is being hyped up like something we've never seen before. I wasn't following basketball or old enough to be around when like LeBron, that hype was going on when he was entering the league and stuff, but I was around when Zion was entering the league and the hype around that. I have never seen a player be treated like the actual second coming of Jesus Christ more than Victor Wembanyama. Like this, no, like genuinely. And I'm not like saying it in a bad way. I'm not trying to like fault Wembanyama or anything like that. Like it's not him or anything like that, but it is just crazy to me how much a player who he played overseas and stuff, and I have his stats pulled up and everything, which really don't matter in the bigger picture because it's really not based off of what he's done, but what he will do during his time in the NBA. It's incredible how much hype this player is getting before even stepping foot and played a real NBA game yet. He played in the summer league, which had its ups and downs, which I'm sure we'll get to. But I'm interested to hear what you have to say about Wembanyama and just kind of your overall thoughts on the hype levels around him going into it and kind of your expectations. Because I know for me personally, like, you don't want to listen to outside noise or anything like that, but Wembanyama knows how hyped up he is and how much pressure is on him and how many eyes are on him. As a player like that, that would kind of like freak me out. Like, that would definitely make me nervous, give me, not lack self-confidence by any means, but like, when you step out into that court, all eyes are on you and you have to show out. So what do you think of Victor Wembanyama, all this pressure being put on him, and just overall, like, your expectations for him? Like, what do you think Victor Wembanyama will become in the NBA?
I mean, there's a lot of things I kind of feel about him. One, like whenever he was drafted, everybody was saying, is the hype bigger than LeBron's and yada, yada, yada. Personally, I'm going to tell you no for that portion, because even though we were super young whenever LeBron came into the league, I remember growing up a Kobe fan, and while people were saying he's projected to be even better than Kobe, I was like, ain't no freaking way. But yeah. LeBron came in, stole the show, did LeBron-like things like it's LeBron freaking James, and the hype was ridiculous. He was on the cover of magazines in high school, being given cars in high school.
The chosen one.
Like this, the hype around LeBron was serious, but this Wemby stuff, Wembanyama is definitely a good second place. Like overall, though, I think he'll be fine. Mm-hmm. I think even with some of the summer league performances that you alluded to, that game one where he scored like 7 points, whatever it was, had 2 to 3 blocks and like 7 rebounds.
Didn't shoot that well first game.
And I'm not even worried about that, because I think the harder part to translate to sometimes is the offensive side of the ball. But defense is all instincts and intangibles. So for him to show me that he could contest shots, still block shots, that's what I expect out of a kid that's 7'5" and stepping into the league. So if he can do those things, I'm happy. Yeah. I'm satisfied. And I know that Pop and the rest of the Spurs organization probably was too. It takes a real basketball mind to look past the box score. And that's what I think we need to remind fans everywhere, that the debut wasn't as shitty as projected as it actually looks.
It's also
just because he shot like
it's also it's summer league too. Let's just be real here. It's also his first ever game playing at that level too. Like, you know how hard it is to adjust from a style of play to NBA? Like, it's not an overnight thing. It takes a bit.
It's even new rules that compared to where he was playing at. Mm-hmm. So I don't put a lot of stock into summer league, maybe as some do, but overall, I think he's going to be fine. What I want to see out of him this season, again, is exactly what I just touched on. Be a good defender. Be a good rim protector. Show me that you can switch on the guards, but if you're going to get beat, that you can get back into the play to make life hard. Like, he is super long. He's kind of slow-footed, and there is a lot of guards in this league that will definitely attempt to break him down and package him up like some mechanic's lunch. I can see that happen.
He got dunked on in summer league. I don't know. I forgot who it was. Someone dunked on him.
It was Scott Jones. It was Charlotte.
There you go. Shout out Charlotte. Shout out Charlotte.
But hey, I don't mind that, because he's contesting a shot, even if you get dunked on.
Right.
It happens. Jared Allen gets dunked on all the time. But he's one of the best shot blockers in the league. You gotta be willing to contest a shot and have the cojones to put yourself in there. Yep. Exactly.
No, I'm with you. The whole narrative around players in summer league, I think people take it too seriously. Like, we have a guy like Wembanyama come in. Like, I'm not gonna repeat everything that we just said, but you're stepping onto a new court, a new league, new rules, this and that, new players that you've never gone up against before. Of course, it's gonna be an adjustment. Of course, you're not people expected him to come out and drop 30 points in the summer league. People take summer league a little too seriously. Summer league, you go in, you have an eye test, you don't look at the box scores, you see what they did well on, what they didn't do well on. And then you work on that in the offseason, in training camp, you get ready for the start of the season. What worries me about Wembanyama, the only thing that really worries me about him is injuries. Now, I'm not saying he has an injury history or anything like that, but I have just a fear of guys that big, in just a freak thing happening. like a freak injury, knee injury, leg injury. Like I remember when Kristaps tore his ACL, he was out for over a year because that dude's got a massive ACL. Like when you're that big and you get injured, it takes a little bit to come back from it. Like Chet missed all of last year, his entire rookie year, because of an injury that he had in the Drew League, I believe. That's the only thing about him that really worries me. But it's just like it's something like a freak thing that it's something that's out of your control, right? So I mean, so it's not really it's a fear, but it's not something that's like, oh, I'm worried about him, like how he plays and stuff like that. He's going to be great. I think he'll adjust fine. I think he'll be a rock star in the NBA. I just hope that he stays healthy and can reach that potential. That being said, another thing, because I'm just kind of looking at like stats about him, whatever, it's scary, dude, how young these guys are. This guy was born in 2004. I'm 6 years older than this guy. Like it terrifies me. Besides the point, I think this guy is going to be. I don't want to be that guy that jumps on the hype train or anything like that, but I do think he is going to make a high impact his first year. If he stays healthy, I think he'll make a high impact. I think you're going to see a type of player that we haven't really seen before. A guy at 7'4", 7'5", that's going to be shooting threes. That's going to be bringing the ball up the court potentially on some plays. That's going to be throwing passes behind the back like Magic Johnson. Like we're going to be seeing a type of player that we are used to seeing. So I think that's going to take some people by surprise.
It's a 2K build.
And I'm glad. Amazing segue, because I play some 2K and I play like my league and stuff, like simulations. Bro, they have this guy like winning MVP like 10 times, like 10 defensive player of the years, 10 MVPs. Like they have that 2K has high expectations for him. I think that he's going to set a tone when he enters the league of just like, that type of player. We're going to see a lot of big men like him in the future come in and be able to chuck up threes and do dribble moves and stuff. He's just going to be the first of its kind. And I think it's going to be great for the NBA. I think, another international player being thrown in, getting more eyes on the league, as well as the Spurs organization. Because I think if Victor does well, you're just opening the door for, potential free agents, trades in the future. I mean, God's sakes, people were saying Damian Lillard might request a trade to San Antonio just because of Wembanyama is there and Greg Popovich and stuff. So he's already like making waves like that. I don't have the highest expectations in the world. His first year, it's his rookie year. Like I'm not expecting him to come out and drop 20 and 10 his rookie year or whatever. But I do think he's going to have a very, very good rookie year if he stays healthy. And I think it'll set the tone for what to expect from him in the future. But I just hope that the guy stays healthy and he has a very injury-free career. That's all I hope for with him.
I mean, can you give me a prediction about his numbers and like what do you foresee him averaging this year in his first season?
His first year in the NBA, I think I can see him averaging like high teens. Maybe he might break past the 20-point mark, because if you look at the team around him, I mean, you have Keldon Johnson, you have Vassell, you have
Trey
Jones. I couldn't think which Jones it was. You have some solid pieces. Salton, the guy he has the colored hair. People say it looks like Dennis Rodman.
Oh, Jeremy
Sohan.
Yeah.
Can't always get his name wrong. They have a solid group. But I think he'll still be able to set himself apart and be the leading scorer, one of the leading scorers. I think I'd predict him a little bit right around 20 points per game, 8 or 9 rebounds. I don't want to say he's going to average a double-double his rookie year. I think it's possible, but I don't want to say that. I want to put that on him. And then 2 blocks probably. So I'll go 28 and 2 would be my stat line. And I see him shooting well, 50% from the field. I don't think he's going to be a shark from 3 right away. I can see him shooting like anywhere between like 30-35%. I think he'll have like average shooting numbers. but nothing that's going to be like, oh my God, this guy's coming in shooting 40-45% from three his first year. Like, no, nothing like that. I think it'll be fair average numbers.
No, yeah, I get that. I mean, I am interested to see how Pop plays him because he's not your traditional post up big. So like even with him, like you said, him shooting above 50%, like I think that might be a little bit of a reach because I feel like we're going to see more perimeter shots from him more than like paint touches. Like his two mentors, like Tim Duncan and David Robinson, guys that start in the paint and go inside and out. Maybe they could space it to the mid range area, just because that's the era that they played in.
Right.
But I could see Wemby being more of a fluid guy, like along the perimeter, probably like like how Kristaps was used.
Sure.
Kind of like a rim runner or a slasher. I'm gonna set the pick. I'm gonna pop out to the corner or to the wings and kind of like wait for production from my guards to kind of set things up for me. If I had to give out some quick numbers, I'm gonna go about 6 points less. I think I'm gonna go 14, 15 range.
Okay.
Because I think Keldon Johnson is still gonna be the future weapon for Pop.
Keldon Johnson's a beast. I don't want to downplay Keldon. He's a beast.
Like I am interested. That's probably who I'm looking at as the Spurs' best player right now.
Mm-hmm. No,
like
fair.
Wemby over time will obviously supplant him, overtake that spot, whatever. Cool, but I'm seeing like 15, 7 boards because I don't know how he's going to deal with the physicality of box outs and how he's going to fare there. I need to see it with at NBA speed with those guys. So 6 or 7 boards, and I'm with the 2 blocks part. I think him averaging 1.5 to 3 blocks is like what I'm seeing, because he's 7'5" and can contest shots. Like when they played the Hornets in the summer league, Brandon Miller took a step back on him and he closed the gap automatically. Like that's some real go gadget type of stuff that I see from Victor Wembanyama. Like I'm excited, like just to actually watch the Spurs on League Pass. Like
that's gonna be crazy. That's the other thing too, dude. It's like the excitement levels. That's what Wembanyama is bringing to the NBA as well. Like you're bringing the eyes, like I said, but like League Pass, like there are a handful of teams I watch. Like obviously the Celtics. I like watching Cleveland last year. I thought that was a fun team to watch. The Lakers. Just I'm not an LA guy, but I've always been a LeBron guy. True. I will be the first to say that I've always liked LeBron. I've never been a LeBron hater, so I've always liked following him. I respect greatness, and I like to watch him before he retires one day, because I know that day is coming sometime soon. So I want to take advantage of that. But the San Antonio Spurs are now a team that, like, you're going to get people investing in League Pass just to watch Victor Wembanyama play. This isn't just like, you have to look at this from different perspectives. Think of like the money that he's going to bring into the NBA too. We have to look at this from a business perspective, jersey sales, ticket sales. As soon as the San Antonio Spurs won the draft lottery, their season ticket holder, like they sold out of all their season tickets and stuff. All these tickets were flying off the shelves, jerseys and this and that. Just the impact that he makes not only on the court, but off the court as well is insane. And I'm just excited to just watch it from the beginning. I'm very excited to be able to watch and follow this guy's career as it happens, because again, this is what could be a generational player, once in a lifetime player. Genuinely, that's his potential, once in a lifetime, which is, you don't come across that a whole lot.
Every 20 years.
Every 10, 20. The last guy, LeBron, right? I don't think. I mean, you have a few guys that got the hype levels, like Zion, I said earlier, but no, the last guy was LeBron, and now it's Wembanyama. He has a lot to live up to, but I'm very optimistic and I'm hopeful that he will be able to reach that potential, because that potential is all-time great status, which is insane to think about. But I hope nothing but the best for Wemby. The Spurs. Do you think, now kind of like keeping on the topic, what do you think Wembanyama's impact will be for the Spurs record-wise? Because last year, let me pull up, they were I want to say they were the 14th seed. I think they were 14 because I think Houston was last. Oh, no, San Antonio. Oh, them and Houston were tied for last. So San Antonio finished tied for last in the Western Conference. Where do you see them finishing this year? Do you think the impact of Wembanyama is going to be big enough where they can potentially compete for a play-in spot? Or do you think they're still going to kind of float around the bottom of the pack in the West and kind of, get another high draft pick next year and then go from there.
Yeah, I think, the best case scenario for them is competing for a playing spot. I don't think they're a playoff team outright. I don't think they're in the top 6.
I agree.
With Memphis, Clippers, well, both LA teams really. Obviously the Nuggets who just won a title, Phoenix,
Sacramento
and Golden State, who I think will be back in the mix as well. So definitely best case scenario is like a 9 to 10 seed or something like that. But I think realistically, I think we still see them net themselves a lottery pick next season.
Yeah.
I can see them winning around 30 to 35 games, but it's really just one of those wait and see kind of projects with Wemby to me. And plus the injury risk is still a thing, right?
Right.
Can Wemby actually play the full grind of an 82 game season? College kids play about 30 games, minus tournament time. Obviously he was a pro basketball player since he was 17, 16 or whatever it was. But they don't play 82 games over there.
No.
So how many games is he going to play? Are they going to load manage him? Pop is the king of load management.
Yes, he is.
With Tony Parker and TD and all those guys during his dynasty run. So I don't know how many games he's actually going to play. How often is he going to be available? So that's where I'm kind of tripping up on. I don't think I'm going to give him the playing distinction. I think they're around a 12 seed. I think they win around 30 to 35 games, but probably still net themselves a lottery pick in the top 10 next year, I think.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the standings. Like the Rockets, I do think the Rockets they've signed some big free agents this offseason. I think that they're going to make improvements. The Blazers, all comes down to what happens with Lillard. Utah, they started off hot last year, finished as the 12th seed. Dallas had a big slip up. Even OKC, they finished as the 9th seed, but they're a team that, that's a type of team that San Antonio Spurs can look to match them and stay at their level. But there are a lot of really good teams in the West, like we mentioned: Denver, Memphis, Sacramento, Phoenix, both LA teams, Golden State, Minnesota, New Orleans. We mentioned was a number 1 seed when Zion was healthy, and the Jazz were good to start the year. Then the Mavericks missed out, and they're supposed to be good. There's a lot of good teams in the West. I'm with you. I think best case scenario for this year is the play-in. It's very, very hard for me to imagine the Spurs being any higher than a 9 or 10 seed. And unless Wembanyama just completely breaks out his rookie year and he has no injuries and the Spurs just click. Everything is just he was the missing piece. We're ready to go. Kind of like OKC last year. Yeah. I can guarantee you not even a single Oklahoma City Thunder fan thought that they would make the play-in game. It was just the direction that they're going down. It just wasn't expected, which is not a bad thing. You have a very young team, a lot of draft picks because of the star players that you traded. You're not supposed to be good. But guess what? They were the 9th seed. They even won a game in the play-in because Shai Gilgeous was a fucking monster. Wembanyama could make the same impact. I don't think it's far-fetched, and I think it's a big reach for that to happen. But man, you never know. You never know. But I do think that they will be around play-in team. I don't think that they'll be a top 6 lock for the playoffs, but that's the beauty of basketball. You never know. So we'll have to wait and see there.
What I could say before we do move on, I just had to look it up, where they were defensively, and they were literally dead last, 30th in defensive rating last year. So that is one thing I foresee changing. And defense, despite what Kevin Durant thinks, does win you games in championships. So I can foresee the Spurs taking a little leap. Like you said, best case scenario, like we both said, best case, 9 to 10 seed, but I think they're a lottery.
What are you talking about? For offense wins championships, you have to score. You have to score more points, bro. That's how you win. You have to score more.
I think the big part that KD forgot to mention, even if you are an offensive-driven team like those Golden State Warriors teams that he was on, they were still top 5 defensively. But
they were really good.
It's more so about timely stops if you're an elite offensive team. If you're on the other side of the ball, you can't – if you're up by 2 and you need to stop them from – or you're up by 1 rather and you need to stop them from scoring, what are you going to wait to get the ball back? You're going to let them score?
Yeah. You got to play
Okay.
defense. Hey, listen, I love Kevin Durant on Twitter. I just want to point that out. The guy has a lot of free time, and I love what he does with it. Love what he does with it. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about a little bit of free agency here. So I have a list of most of or the biggest free agency transactions, trades, signings, re-signings, all this stuff. I kind of want to go over because now we're at the point where we're going to start having some fun. Let's play some games here. Let's rank, Jerry, the best free agency moves of the offseason so far. There might be a few more things that happen, but let's talk about the best moves that have happened so far. And if you wouldn't mind, I would like to start.
Go for it.
I would like to start. I think I'm just going to give 3 of the best free agency moves I think have happened this offseason. The first one that I'm going with, and I'm going to give some love to your LA Lakers. I think Austin Reeves signing a 4-year, $53 million deal was a very, very good move for the Lakers and Austin Reeves as well. I think it was the Spurs. There was a report came out that saying that they were planning on offering him more, but it seemed like he wanted to be in LA. I mean, he's still getting paid a good chunk of money. So it's not like he got underpaid or anything like that, but I think he is a very big part of what the LA Lakers are trying to build there. They're, building a credible team around an aging LeBron and then Anthony Davis, who unfortunately has a hard time staying healthy, staying on the court. And Austin Reeves was a high impact player for them last year. Out of nowhere, but high impact player that is deserving of the money that was given to him. I think the Lakers going out and signing not only him, but Gabe Vincent, I think were 2 big signings for them. I think those 2 guys are going to make huge impacts on the Lakers next year. So that is one of my free agency moves. The second one that I'm going with, and I hate to do it because I don't want to be that guy, but I do think Kristaps Porzingis going to Boston was one of the best, maybe not the best, but one of the biggest splashes made in this free agency this offseason, because I don't want to go back to what we said earlier. If you want to hear my thoughts about the Celtics and the Kristaps Porzingis trade, go back to the 5-6 minute mark and you could hear about it all there. But I do think that this is a move that made the Celtics better, that made a team that was already considered a favorite coming out of the East better. I'm not going to say that they're the best team in the East. I still think you have a team like a Milwaukee. I think it's very hard to ignore them. Miami, even though they were an 8 seed last year, they're a very good team. Seeding does not matter in that case. But the Celtics did get better. And I think they made a move that is they brought in a player that they needed. They lost someone that was important to the team, but I think you get better by you add more of an offensive weapon, lose a little bit on defense, but I think they can work with it. And then the third one that I have, I think I'm going to go with, you know what? I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to give a shout out to the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think Anthony Edwards signing his massive contract extension was a huge move. It's something that was going to happen, that needed to happen. And the reason why I put this up there is because I believe Anthony Edwards is on the trajectory of becoming one of the best players in the NBA. And I know he's still very young and stuff, but oh my God, this guy, he doesn't have many weaknesses, at least on offense. There's definitely ways that he can improve on the defensive end and all around. You can always improve. But the Timberwolves locking down this franchise player, I think, was just exactly what needed to be done. I do think Cat's time in Minnesota is ticking. I do think that he's not going to be a Timberwolf I think he'll be a Timberwolf for this year, but I think that this is the first step of it being like, okay, like it was Cat's team, but the keys are being handed over to Anthony Edwards. This is his team now. And I think that this is the first move, for the first step of a major shakeup in Minnesota that is coming at some point. But I love Anthony Edwards. I had to give him his flowers, a shout out to Anthony Edwards. But those, I think, are my 3 biggest moves of the offseason so far, Jerry.
Okay. We talked a lot about Lakers and Celtics, pretty much pretty much the majority of this pod.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But I'll just say I'm not gonna put my Lakers in there. I'll leave them out. But I will go with Boston because I think Porzingis being added to that team, another mobile defender, it helps you compete with guys like Giannis that are just 7-foot unicorns.
Yeah.
Like Kristaps is probably one of the first unicorns of that namesake. So I do like having 3 good defenders in Brown, Tatum, and then adding KP to take turns guarding Giannis or giving him different looks. And then, of course, you still have the aging Al Horford and Robert Williams and stuff like that. So big shout out to them. Obviously, they lost Grant Williams. They lost Marcus Smart. It is kind of sad there, but hey, it's the NBA. It's a business. It's a business. It's a mover and shakers league, man. Like, people end up anywhere any day. Right. For number 2, though, I think I have to give Phoenix some love here, man. Like, I know that the Bradley Beal trade is probably the most lopsided trade that I've seen in the last 5 to 10 years.
Why? Because Washington didn't get a single first-round pick back.
It's a holster of second-round picks. But that's what, like we talked about earlier. If you want to hear about the Bradley Beal and Damian Lillard situation, go back to the 15 or 20-minute mark. Because Bradley Beal had the organization by the balls.
By the freaking balls,
he had
bro.
a no-trade clause.
Unreal.
He could dictate wherever he wanted to go. Also, I want to give a huge shout-out to Devin Booker for saying that I want a super team to come to Phoenix.
Yeah, respect.
He got his super team.
Absolutely.
He got his super team.
Absolutely.
They got Yuta Watanabe, who shot over 40%.
He did.
With KD in Brooklyn. So they get one of KD's good weapons. They get Eric Gordon. They get, like, Bol, another project player.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But now we were really just worried about the depth, right? We saw in the playoff series that, damn, it's literally Book, KD, and then the rest. And the rest was not looking too good. They scored 14 points for the series off the bench at one point. Like, it was terrible.
Yeah, you can't win with that. It's tough.
But now they got sharpshooters coming off the bench. Eric Gordon and Yuta are, like, the perfect players to play with stars. So I'm actually, like, excited to see how Phoenix looks. And obviously, Frank Vogel is a defensive coach. Who also, that's a big acquisition for Phoenix.
I was going to say, I even forgot that they got Frank Vogel. Yeah.
So, like, I hate to see Monty Williams go. I hope he does great things in Detroit, but Frank Vogel might be what the team needs. Lastly,
I was going to say, I think Monty Williams is going to do just fine with his record-breaking deal that he signed.
Yeah, absolutely. But lastly, just looking at these moves, man, I think I have to give a lot of credit to Memphis here, man. Like,
yeah, that's a good one.
We haven't touched on them a lot. It's not like they signed a super big name or traded for a super big name, but Marcus Smart fits that grit and grind play style that Memphis is used to with Conley, Tony Allen, and Zebo, right? Like, I love Marcus Smart in Memphis, especially while John Morant's, suspended for the first 25 games of the season. Marcus Smart could hold down the fort. And let's not forget, Memphis might not have the hottest names, maybe outside of John Morant, obviously, but, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson, these are star players in their own roles because they're playing with a superstar in John Morant that we forget about. Like, Jaren Jackson was a DPOY.
They were the 2 seed last year. They're only 2 games back of Denver.
Exactly. But we forget about Memphis as being a legit contender. But they're literally in a constant face in the postseason every single year.
Yeah.
Like, it does hurt that they lost, Tyus Jones. I think that kind of hurts me personally. Like, I'm not a Duke fan, but that was probably one of my favorite players back at Duke, and watching him grow in the league. It was very fun to watch him just play at his slow and steady pace. I love watching Tyus Jones, but I'm gonna get. And they signed Derrick Rose, which I think is probably the perfect mentor.
Yeah,
it's the perfect mentor for your star point guard who had his ups and downs. He won an MVP and was on a title contender in Chicago for a little bit.
Dude, but a lot of people compare the two, John Morant, as to a younger Derrick Rose before his injuries. Then you can see it. You can definitely see a little bit of Derrick Rose there. I think Derrick Rose was the perfect veteran to bring in for someone like that.
And both him and Marcus Smart were the perfect pieces for your franchise player.
Yeah.
For your guy to help get him reined in and help understand and how the ins and outs of the NBA and who you need to have in your circle and who's not around you. I think both of those guys will mentor Ja perfectly.
Because by bringing in these 2 guys, obviously Derrick Rose didn't get to play much on the Knicks. He got put on the bench. He didn't do much. But not only did you bring in two guys that, like you said, can be good leaders for John Morant, which I think was the biggest need this offseason for them, was just veteranship. Because, a lot of people, I mean, when all this stuff was John Morant was coming out, people were saying they need someone in that locker room to hold guys accountable, to be like that big brother, whatever figure. You have Steven Adams, but I don't know, I'm not trying to discredit him, but I don't know if he was really going to be the guy to get through to John Morant. You got someone like Marcus Smart, who will tell you how it is. He'll butt heads with you. But that's because he wants to win and he wants to bring the best out of you. That's a good guy to bring in. And I agree. I'm happy that the Celtics traded him to a team that he's going to do well on, because I do think he's going to thrive in Memphis and he fits that team perfectly.
He's going to be one of their most important players.
He is.
Already.
He is. And that it pains me to say that I'm very happy for him. That doesn't pain me, but I am very happy for him. I think he's do well. But then you got Derrick Rose. We bring up Derrick Rose, who, again, didn't play much last year. How much of an impact he'll be on the court, that's to be seen. But I think just having that leader in the locker room who has had the highest of highs with winning an MVP and had the lowest of lows with the countless knee injuries and missing seasons and stuff. I think having that leader who can offer that perspective and just like looking things at the bigger picture, I think having someone like that next to John Morant is so important, because you're going to have guys that are going to impact the Grizzlies on the court, but you could argue that they're going to impact the Grizzlies even more off the court, which I would argue is more important to them at this point, because they have the talent. They have 2 defensive player of the years on their team now. They have John Morant. He's going to be suspended the first 25 games. A guy that could give you 30 a night. You got a lot of young guys. You got pieces there that you can work with, and you could really build. You already have a contender, but just like adding on to it and just putting the missing pieces of the puzzle together. And I think Marcus Smart and Derrick Rose, I'm not saying they're the final pieces, but man, they got closer to getting to where they want to be, and that's being a championship team. So I do agree with you. I think Memphis made some big moves this offseason that I think is going to benefit them as much as anyone in the NBA.
Like, fun fact here too, I'm like a big Memphis guy on the side. Like, I was a big Conley fan at Ohio State watching him play. Mm-hmm. So I got attached to Memphis early, but I just want to say too, the only person on the job, like being a Hornets reporter, like I go into both locker rooms. Quick story real quick.
No, go for it.
I've only asked to take a picture with one player. Like one. Like, granted, my first year was in like COVID, so my time got cut short. I didn't get like the LeBrons, and I think I missed Dame and James Harden and all those guys.
Sure.
But John Morant came into the locker room as a rookie that 2019 season. I was just like, yo, you want to take a picture, bro? Like, can I get a picture with you? I was like, yeah, sure. Like, after I talked to him about the game, and he had a game winner on Charlotte, a crazy reverse double clutch layup. It was insane.
Okay.
But so like I became a fan in that moment. That's the only picture in my camera roll that I have in my phone with an NBA player. Just like, damn,
that's cool.
John Morant, this rookie season, John, like, this dude's gonna be amazing.
Yeah.
I got to be a fan in this moment. So, wish you nothing but the best, Josh. Shout out to you, man. Like, hopefully you learn from your suspension. You come back, your team is still a title contender. You're the missing piece. You just gotta grow up.
I'm with you, bro. Ever since when John Morant entered the league, I've just always been a huge fan of his story. Just like no college is looking at him whatsoever. He's practicing one day, and then some scout comes in and goes, "Who the hell is this guy?" And next thing you know, he's at Wichita State. He's fucking putting up double, going crazy.
Murray.
Said, "Oh, Murray. That's why I have you. That's why I have you, brother." See, I'm not. I will say, moving forward to everyone listening, when it comes to college, like remembering college, like colleges players went to, or college sports, whatever, I am not that great there. If you watch our YouTube channel, Clutch Time, we do a lot of quizzes and stuff like that, sports quizzes. When we do stuff like, where did this athlete go to college? It's almost a guarantee that I'm going to get a 0 out of 10. That's definitely my weak spot. But regardless, when John Morant entered the league, I was telling my friends this. I was like, listen, this kid's going to be top 5 in just a few years. Like, I don't know. I was always a fan of him. I loved his style of play. I loved a young Derrick Rose, and that's who he reminded me of. And I'm very happy that he was able to get to a point where he is considered a top guard in the league. But I just hope that he learns from his mistakes, that he learns from the suspension, and he comes back and he becomes a leader in Memphis that everyone wants him to be. And he has a very, very bright future ahead of him, and he stays out of trouble. I hope that's what happens. And I think we're an hour 15 in right now. We've definitely talked a little bit. Let's do some TikTok games. I have 2 games for you, Jerry. All right, two quick games. Nothing crazy. Just this is more of an opinionated game, so you don't have to worry about remembering things or whatever. We're gonna do a game of start, bench, cut. So I'm gonna give you 3 players, same position, or around the same position, and I want you to tell me who you would start, who you would bench, and who you would cut from your team. All right?
People are about to find out real quick who I am.
There's someone in there that might sway you a little bit, but we'll see. So we have LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Jason Tatum. 3 of the best forwards in the NBA.
Damn. You sure you don't have any other games?
I do have one more game for you. This is a good one. I want to get it out of you.
I'm like, it's not even any knock to the young gun, man. It's not.
Listen, I know I'm a Celtics fan over here, but this is your team, not mine.
I'll tell you what, bro. I'm gonna start KD because I think healthy Kevin Durant is arguably the best player on the planet when he's healthy and actually available. Mm-hmm. So I'm starting KD, and I say this all the time. Until this dude retires, I think LeBron is a top 5 player in the league, man. Tatum is on his way.
Yeah.
But I'm going to bench LeBron only because of the injuries. That's why he's on the bench. But
that's true.
I think you can easily interchange KD and LeBron. But I got to cut Tatum. It's not even because he's not better than the 2 right now. He doesn't have an argument. But it's more so just because he's still the pup.
He's still the young gun. He's the young gun. He's the young guy. I get it.
No disrespect, man. I love him. I love Tatum. But
no disrespect at all.
You got to go.
Listen, I'm with you. I understand, and I agree with your statements. I think Kevin Durant is the guy to start here. When he's healthy, he had 55, 40, 90 last year, the first player in NBA history to do that. The dude's lights. The dude is one of the most efficient scorers. I personally think he's one of the best, one of the most skilled offensive players the game has ever seen. A guy that
you can call him the best scorer ever. I can definitely call him.
If you won't mind me saying that, I will live by that take. I think like you obviously have like people that say Wilt, and you have guys that'll say Jordan and stuff like that. I get that, but like, bro, Kevin Durant is 7 feet tall with a handle and can pull it from 30 feet. Like, get the fuck out of here. That's unguardable. When he's healthy, he's the best player in the world. I would agree with Kevin Durant. Admittedly, I would switch Tatum and LeBron, but I do get where you're coming from. Like, the reason why I would do that is because LeBron's age. That's quite literally the only reason why. But like you said, when he's healthy, when LeBron's healthy, he had some injuries last year. He is still one of the best players in the world, which is fucking crazy to think about. He's going into his 21st season and is still entering the league as a top 5 player, arguably. But, you know, the veteranship, what he's proven, what he's still doing at the age is definitely unbelievably impressive. So I understand why you bench him.
Never been done.
Never. Dude, it's insane. Just like it's insane how he's been able to compete at this level for such a long time. Like, I don't know if we'll ever see anything like it again. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But, man, it's fucking special to watch. And Tatum, you're right. He's getting there. He's getting there. He's coming, but he is coming off a 30-point per game season. I think he's starting to come into his own as like the offensive player. We've always known that he's almost got any skill in his bag, but the defensive side is what he's really improved on, and also his playmaking abilities. I do have high expectations for him going into this season. I'm expecting his assists per game to go up. I'm expecting him to become more of an all-around player. Kind of like similar to a LeBron, you know what I mean? Where you put up like 27, 7, and 7 throughout the entirety of your career. I would love to see him put up numbers similar to that. But listen, I understand LeBron's still playing, and when LeBron's still playing, he's one of the best. So it's hard. It's hard to argue that. I'm with you.
The king still has his crown, man. That's all I can say.
The king still has his crown. No one's taken it from him yet. So all right. So I got one more for you. One more game, and then we'll call it. We'll give our final thoughts, opinions, whatever it may be. But last game. So this one, it's not like a. So this is called underrated, properly rated, or overrated. So I'm going to give you 3 players one at a time, and you have to tell me whether you think this player is underrated, overrated, or properly rated. Like he's perfect the way he is. Okay?
Got you.
First player I have for you is Bradley Beal, the newest member of the Phoenix Suns.
Huh. I'm actually going to go properly rated. I think when Bradley Beal is healthy, he's still one of the better 2 guards in the league. You can make the argument for top 5. You can make the argument for top 10. I definitely know he's top 10, but he is a good playmaker. After John Wall got out, when he was hurt in those later Washington years, we saw Bradley Beal develop his game to become more of a willing passer, where we saw his assist numbers tick up while averaging well over 25 points a game. So I still think he is a star caliber player, and he makes Phoenix scary on offense when you pair him up with 2 of the best scorers in the game today. So definitely properly rated to me. I love Bradley Beal's game.
You got 3 guys that could give you 30 plus every night. That is definitely not a lineup that you want to go up against. Next player I have for you, Jerry, someone that we've talked about quite a bit this episode, Jaylen Brown.
I mean this in the best way possible.
I love how right before you go to say something, you're just like, I want to put this out there. Like I want to clear the air before I say what I'm about to say.
Like I'm going to interact with these players whenever they come to Charlotte.
I remember when you said I was overrated, Jerry. Yeah.
So with all due respect, I do think Jaylen Brown is just a tad bit overrated. I mean, it's more so. I think Jaylen Brown is an excellent player. We're on the record earlier in this episode saying that the Celtics do have that mold of the MJ and Pitt mold where they are great two-way players.
You did compare Jaylen Brown to Michael Jordan earlier.
Not whoa. Play style. Yeah. Definitely not going there. But until I see Jaylen Brown actually develop that left hand, it's like what happened with Tyreek Evans for a little bit. Tyreek Evans won Rookie of the Year and averaged 20 points a game.
Tyreek Evans was a bucket.
They forced him to go one way, and teams figured him out in Sacramento, and then boom, he's in New Orleans, and then he's in Indiana, and then Tyreek's out of the league.
Now where is he now? Yeah.
He has some legal problems going on. But anyway.
Okay, gotcha. Back to Jaylen Brown.
Jaylen Brown is definitely it's just a little overrated. Like the money, he deserves it. He did everything he had to do for it, but I need to see your game expand more. You talked about Tatum taking a leap earlier with becoming a playmaker. I need to see that out of him too, because if Tatum is MJ, Jaylen Brown needs to be Scottie Pippen.
Right. No, you're right.
Scottie Pippen was the primary playmaker for those 90s Bulls championship teams. Mm-hmm. That was him running up the court, him bringing the ball up, initiating the offense, putting MJ sometimes, a lot of possessions actually, in position to score and be successful. He was the setup guy. So I'm not saying Jaylen Brown has to be that, but I need to see his game expand in that way. Because if you're getting paid $304 million, your game needs to be airtight. I shouldn't be able to poke any holes into. I shouldn't say that, hey, I'm guarding Jaylen Brown, I'm going to sit on his right hand and make him go left. No. Right. If you really are the richest player in NBA history in terms of contract, your ass better be set up and have a counter for everything. Tracy McGrady had counters for every single thing that was thrown at him. Mm-hmm. So does every other great NBA player. LeBron, Kobe, KD.
I think Jaylen trained with Tracy McGrady a few years ago too. I think that's someone that he trained with a few years ago. But no, listen, we were talking about Wembanyama earlier, and I was talking about the pressure and all the eyes on him going into this season. Jaylen Brown's going to have a lot of pressure on him going into this season too. He's going to have a lot of people coming at him saying he doesn't deserve that money, that he's got to live up to that contract. I hope he does, but I understand where you're coming from. I think he's proven a lot. so far in his career, but he still has a lot more to prove and to work on. And I hear you. I understand. But let's move on to the last one, Jerry, right? The last player I have for you. Now, this one, I feel like I know what your answer is going to be, but I kind of want to I threw this player in there just for the sake of conversation, just for the sake of, I just want to hear what you have to say. Kyrie Irving. Do you think he's overrated, underrated, or properly rated?
You know what? I love Kyrie, man. I think people underrate Kyrie now because of all the off-court drama that swirls around this man.
Yep.
Like, I'm gonna drop the second F-bomb. I'm fucking sick of it. Like,
yes, we got it out of him. We got it out of him.
The dude is literally an all-world talent at the point guard position.
One of the best guards to touch a basketball.
Literally, period.
Yeah, period.
And everybody talks about how Steph is, the best point guard in the league, and maybe Damian Lillard second. I have a news flash for everybody that rates point guards or thinks they know ball and wants to shit on Kyrie. All three of those guys on the same exact plane.
Yep.
It just so happens that Steph ended up in this best situation out of all three.
Yeah.
Obviously, he has 4 championships. He has 2 MVPs. Yeah. Steph is amazing. I'm not taking anything away from that dude. But he is not that much better, if at all, than Kyrie Irving to me or Damian Lillard. All those guys are on the same field. Call it a hot take or not. I don't really give a shit.
Let's go, Jerry.
Like, Kyrie is underrated because you guys are thinking about the world as flat and that suck my dick theory that happened in Boston and that he wants to burn sage around arenas and all this other stuff. Man, like, Kyrie is great, man. Kyrie's fucking amazing. An even better human being than basketball player.
Dude.
I'll be on the record saying that.
Dude,
anybody that disagrees, you can kiss my ass. Maybe this is a little bit of that called out coming out of me right now.
Yeah.
Like, I feel it.
That's what I want. That's what I want, baby. Listen, I couldn't agree more. I genuinely couldn't agree more. This is coming from a Boston fan who dealt with 2 years of him and all the other stuff that came around it. You can say what you want about him as a locker room guy off court, whatever. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about basketball here. It was a fucking pleasure to be able to watch him play night in and night out as a member of a Boston Celtics. It is still a pleasure to be able to watch him play, whether it's a Dallas jersey, whether it's a Nets jersey, whether it's a fucking Shanghai Sharks jersey. I would still have the honor and pleasure of watching him play basketball because he genuinely is one of the best players to ever pick up and dribble a basketball. I don't think there's a player, shout out Allen Iverson, who's arguably one of my favorite players of all time. Kyrie Irving has the best handles of all time. I think he has better handles than AI, was the trendsetter, and he was the best at the time. But Kyrie Irving comes in the league and is doing things with the basketball. You would have to fucking pause the game and look to see if he has a string tied up against his fingers in the basketball, because it's insane. And just, again, same level of playing field. Yes, Steph Curry is Steph Curry. He's the best three-point shooter of all time. He's a 4-time NBA champion. We all know that. Damian Lillard, one of the best guards of this generation, who can give you 30, 40, 50 points any given night. Also, I would say one of the best shooters of all time. Kyrie Irving, you can make that argument about him too. He is a great shooter, just a great scorer in general that can give you any amount of points on any given night if you ask him to. He is a guy that I don't want to say he makes a team better, because obviously he has a history of, going to teams they do well, whatever. But as an individual player, there is no denying how special he is. And we've gotten to a point where people do deny that because of all this other stuff that has nothing to do with basketball. Yes, he's said things, he's done things, whatever. As a basketball player, there aren't many players better than him. That's just the fucking truth. So I figured that's what you were gonna say, but I wanted to hear it from you because I agree. I think the narrative around Kyrie is pretty bullshit. We don't talk about how great he is as much as we should, and we should appreciate him more, because I don't know when we're going to see a guy like him ever again, if we ever will. So those are my 2 cents.
I will say before, I know we're about to close out here, about the Steph, Dame, and Kyrie thing. Like, everything in sports is very situational. Like,
Exactly.
you know, Steph lands in Golden State, gets hurt the first few years. They get a couple of lottery picks. They draft Clay, and then they end up getting Draymond in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
You got a dynasty. Somehow, some way, like, let's think about going back in time. Tom Brady gets drafted in the 6th round.
Yeah.
And gets to the perfect situation with the perfect coach in Bill Belichick. Peyton Manning, like, ends up being the number 1 pick and falls into the Colts lap, right? Like, it's amazing how, like, you're put in a situation and you excel. When Kyrie got to Cleveland, Cleveland was garbage. They were terrible.
Yeah, they got they got a top pick the year after.
Yeah, they got Deion Waiters.
You
know, like this is what happens. Like, Dame ends up in Portland. He's in a pretty good situation, but Brandon Roy was on his way out. I think he was already out of Portland by then. LaMarcus Aldridge is, good player, possible Hall of Famer. Nick Batum, Wes Matthews, the team's nice, but it's not as well put together and constructed like what we saw Golden State doing.
Right.
Sometimes it comes down to what management's able to do. So everybody that I know, people are going to flip when they see, oh, he said he's better than Steph Curry. I didn't say he was better, but I did say he's just as good or on the same plane. So I know people are going to lose their fucking shit. But I need y'all to understand, sports are very situational.
It is.
You put Kyrie in a Golden State uniform, maybe they still win the same amount of rings.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, you never know. You really never know. And you have to kind of detach, like the talent from the situation. Like, Steph Curry is a phenomenal player, but look at the organization he's a part of. Like, not saying that, that's the reason why he's so successful. Like, individually doesn't affect him, but you know what I mean. It is very situational. But much love to Kyrie. I think after this conversation, you guys know that we are pro Kyrie Irving basketball fans for sure. Jerry, I think that's it for episode 1, man.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I can't wait to do it again next week. Like, hopefully, you guys enjoyed the show. Hopefully, like, you're gonna follow all our pages. Sitting Courtside, it's on everything.
Yes. Look up Sitting Courtside. Look us up. We're there. We're gonna come out weekly episodes. We're gonna be having clips throughout the week on YouTube, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, all that good stuff. Like I said, follow us on our socials: Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. I tried making Instagram. Listen, I tried making a Sitting Courtside Instagram, and as soon as I made the account, it goes, "You've been suspended," and I had to appeal it. I haven't heard back from them. I'm working on the Instagram, but for now, we're Instagramless. Follow us everywhere else. I've been Dante. Thank you guys so much for listening. You can follow me on Twitter, Dante on Deck. Follow me on all my socials. Jerry, if you could close out, tell these fans where they can find you, where they can follow you.
Yeah, it's the Jerry Danassian. I know the last name's hard to spell. It'll be in the bio.
Yep.
But yeah, it's Jerry Danassian pretty much on every social. So, like, go ahead and check it out. TikTok, same thing. IG. Make sure you follow the main ClutchPoints page as well, because a lot of our great content will be on there. Dante has a lot of side projects like Clutch Time and Stash Club. I have called out another Snap series. So we're busy, but we're going to make time for you.
Yes, sir.
So let's just keep it rolling, man. Let's garner this crowd. You have any questions, comments, concerns? Hit our DMs. Maybe you'll be featured on the show.
A little tidbit right there. Maybe we'll be featured on the show. But thank you guys so much for watching, listening. We'll be back here next week for episode 2. Until then, be safe. Have a good one.
Peace.